podcast. Writers failing the too welcome.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Failing Writers podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hello, John.
Hello.
Hello, Dave.
Dave?
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 Dave? No,
Where's Dave, Tom?
I don't know, he was meant to be here, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
I hope it's not going to be too long, because we've got an interview with Joanna Penn coming up. So he's going to miss that. Just be us two, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't let us down.
No, he's not done that before, has he?
Doubt it.
Right, well, I guess should we just crack on without him, or?
Probably should, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
So, on the show today, right here, right now.
Actually, no, before we do that, let's just have a quick one.
And
ask Dave, what you been writing this week? Yeah, nothing. nothing at all. Nothing at all. What, have you been doing anything this week, John?
I have, actually. Do you know what I've started doing? I've started writing.
What?
A little bit of poker night.
Oh, have you?
Do you know what I started with as well? I started at the actual beginning.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought might be quite interesting. You came up with a really nice idea, I thought.
Did I? What?
Which is that...
Get out of town. Hold on a minute.
It does happen.
What was that?
The idea was that they've been kicked out of a neutral space where they play.
Yeah, it is a good idea, actually. Yeah.
And I like that, because that's why we haven't seen them in their environments, in their natural habitats.
And that's really important to it working, isn't it? I
think so.
Good functional idea.
Yeah, totally. And I came up with a convincing way, I think, to make that work.
Right, okay.
Because at first I was like, I'm not sure. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, that is really good. Because the fact that none of those people have seen where these people live before is a really beautiful idea. Because we're kind of thinking about the idea of them holding back their real selves, aren't we?
Yeah.
And that slowly these characters are sort of going to reveal themselves and become more vulnerable, you know?
Yes, it's the idea. I guess the overall idea is that they've got this group. They don't really see each other outside of this group. They're all kind of acquaintance stroke friends, but not really like friends. And they're all pretending.
Yeah, but friends in the typical way that men tend to be friends.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of front.
Yeah.
And not a lot of what
Depth,
what is actually going on in people's lives. Like if you asked me what was going on in my poker group's lives,
yeah,
I wouldn't have a clue. Do you know what I mean?
And then the idea is that they get drawn into each other's lives.
Exactly.
And see each other, get forced to see each other in more depth. And obviously we'll put some funny bits in there as well.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. But that's good. It's nice to get it off. I mean, I'd sent it through to you and Dave. I'd kind of started and sort of wrote some sort of headline ideas for stories and what have you, and I got a little bit stuck, and I realised I was getting stuck because we hadn't kind of fleshed out the characters that we said when we kind of had our first meeting. It was a starter, but we hadn't fleshed them out.
Yeah.
So I sent you guys that kind of a bit more fleshed out character list for us to have something a bit more, because I think it was important for me, looking back at learning off Will's store, was to get their flaws in,
definitely,
up front and centre, so we can say, right, this is what they think they are, this is why they're never achieving what they're getting, in that kind of sitcom styling. So, hey, look at us actually working on Poker Night.
I know.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I also sent a few more things off to DMs. I'm still not on it, but I think the quality of my stuff is getting lower. So I don't know if that improves my chances or decreases my chances, but
well done for doing it.
I figured I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, good on you.
Sticking with it. And
anything you'd like to share?
God, no, absolutely not. No, definitely not. I've noticed in the sort of the one-liner ones they do, they're very keen on a pun.
Okay, so you've gone down that route.
So I've tried a few little pun ones. Yeah.
Go on, give us one.
Off the top of my head, I don't know them.
Okay.
So I'm gonna sidestep that nicely with that very feeble excuse. I can't remember what I did. So it's probably really funny, but I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, shall we? We're just gonna crack on then without Dave.
We just roll it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll turn up during the interview. let's just start without him.
Yeah. Seems an appropriate time to play my silly little ditty I wrote then, actually.
Oh, okay.
So exactly why is Dave not with us for this interview? We ask, what could he possibly have better to do? Maybe he's having a day out at the local zoo. Maybe he got stuck again in a public loo. Or maybe the interview filled him with fear. Maybe that's why Dave's not here. Maybe he's popped off to Africa on safari. Maybe he's won the lottery and is buying a Ferrari. Or maybe he's just sat having a nice pint of beer. Maybe that's why Dave's not here. Maybe he's thinking up a brand new catchphrase. Maybe he's just auditioning for songs of praise. Or maybe he's popped to Tesco's to buy some paneer. Maybe that's why Dave's not here. Maybe he's on an international spying mission. Maybe he's just gone off for a day of fishing. Or maybe he's just admiring his sexy rear. Maybe that's why Dave's not here. Maybe he's working to bring about world peace. Maybe he's been held hostage by angry geese. Or maybe he's just down the pub playing darts. Could that be why? That could be why. Or maybe he can't be asked. Lazy bugger.
I suspect that is exactly the reason.
Quite possibly. You mean, are you going with the fact he's gone to Tesco's to buy some paneer? I think
that's it, yeah.
I just seem the most likely. That was very much where that started. Well, that's obviously what he's doing. And then try and fill around that, really. Yeah. Or do you mean the can't be asked bit? Maybe that's...
It was more that I was going with,
Yeah. I guess we'll never know. God rest his soul. It's been lovely having him on the podcast. But we can't just wait around for him. We're gonna have to go for it.
No, come on, let's have this interview. So today we are delighted to be joined by award-nominated New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of thrillers and dark fantasy and crime and action adventure. It's quite a long list.
Yeah, very.
Also, international professional speaker, podcaster, blogger, writer of non-fiction books as well, mainly about writing and publishing and marketing. It's Joanna Penn. Lovely to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here.
No, thank you very much.
But before we start, I just wanted to say that talking to you it's a tiny bit intimidating because I think I said in my first email to you, you are basically the polar opposite of us. You are firstly a consummate professional, and secondly, when it comes to the world of publishing and marketing books and writing books, you actually know what you're talking about. So how about, just to put us at our ease, maybe you could start by telling us your pre-success story so we can hear a little bit about your journey to becoming a writer. Throw in some of your early fails so we can feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, well, I think probably the first thing is polar opposite is wrong. It is just that I started in 2005, 2006. So realistically, you're just looking at 15 years.
Of development.
So I just want to give everyone hope. I mean, hopefully things don't take necessarily that long. So I think that's a really important thing for people to remember when you talk to any other writer on any other journey. They've started at different times. So, for example, I often I compare my writing craft to Stephen King because I write kind of darker fiction, and Stephen King started writing and sending off short stories when he was 14, and he's now like 75 or something. So he's 30 years older than me, but he's also started when he was 14. So there's a concept of writing age. And this is really important for everyone to remember. And the thing is, it's domain specific. So I know that you guys did advertising, copywriting, you work in voiceover. Well, and even if people have written a non-fiction book, writing fiction, it's like you start again. So your writing age is how many years have you been writing in this genre? And so you just can't compare yourself to other people. Right. So winding the clock back, so sort of 2005, I was living in Australia at the time. I was an IT consultant. I had ended up in this career that you're meant to do, after university. You went to get a proper job, and I did all that, and I was so miserable. I was just totally miserable with my life, and I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And it was around the time Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek came out. And so I was like, okay, this idea of lifestyle design. And again, this is another really important point for people, is it doesn't matter what you choose as long as it's the life that you want to do, right? So for me, it was, okay, I really like reading. I love reading. I read a lot. I like traveling. And I like writing. And I'm an introvert. So that makes a big difference too. I also felt my life was completely pointless. I was just on this treadmill. I would go to work, earn the money, spend the money, go to work, earn the money, spend the money. And this money for time idea, I was completely done with that. I was like, there has to be another way to spend my time building things that bring me income, this idea of a scalable business. And so that's when I started looking at writing. I started with nonfiction in sort of 2006, first published 2008. And I also started my blog and then the podcast in 2009. Started writing fiction, managed to leave my job in 2011. So that's another tip. It took me 5 years to kind of move over to writing full time, but I took a massive pay cut. It took till 2015 to surpass my old income. And now I'm very much past my old income. And now I guess I've got 35 books sold in 168 countries, lots of copies, full-time author, whatever you like. But the point is, it's taken quite a long time. So yeah, and I think that's really another point, is what do you want and how long are you willing to give it until you get there?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think you look at yourself more as a sort of almost like a business person or an entrepreneur than a writer in a way. Do you know what I mean? You're not just a writer. You see yourself in a slightly different camp, I think.
Well, this is being, well, again, this is a choice about how you want your career to go. So back in 2008, global financial crisis. When I looked at my income, I had one job and one stream of income. Global financial crisis hit. I got laid off. I lost my one stream of income. And that was someone else's decision to sack me. Yeah. And at that moment, I decided I would never, ever give one company the power to change my life in such a negative way again. And so also from that point, I started to educate myself around money. And I was just like, right, there has to be a better way than just working for the man or whatever. There has to be a better way. And so, yes, what I did at that point was think about what are the different ways I can build some kind of business, but a lifestyle business. And that's what's important for me. But essentially, I looked at what does being a writer mean? And the art side is one aspect, but then the business side is another aspect. And I like money. Let's be clear about that. I really like having a good income. I never wanted to be a poor, starving author. So I looked at the time, and this was before the Kindle. Remember, the Kindle only happened in 2010, 2011. So I started self-publishing before the self-publishing revolution, basically. But remember, even people like Virginia Woolf self-published because, and you'll find a quote in The Guardian about it, because basically she didn't want to deal with the vagaries of publishers. So self-publishing is not a new thing. It's just digital publishing is a new thing. And I looked at the models and how I could make money and how traditional publishing worked. And I was like, I would rather learn how to run a business as a publisher. So yes, I'm an author, I write books, and then I have another hat, which is I'm a business person. And again, you get to decide what you want to do. My goal was to leave my job and make multi-six-figure income. That was my goal. Yes, award nominated, etc. And I like the craft side is very important, but equally this pays my mortgage, this pays my pension, this pays my all those things. So yeah, you get to choose how you want to address your writing career. But those were some of my choices.
Yeah. I mean, you're clearly very driven. But I was going to ask you a question about time management, because your output is astonishing. You do the podcast, and you write various different kinds of books. You write travel books, and you write fiction and books about how to write books. And you're very good at your marketing as well. How do you do that?
Well, this is my full-time job.
Where'd you get your time from?
It's my full-time job as an author, and I guess you could say author entrepreneur. And so I tend to balance my time. If you take a sort of normal working week, in the mornings I create intellectual property assets. So this is another mindset shift. We write books, yes, but we create intellectual property assets which bring in income for the term of copyright, which, if people don't know, it's 70 years after you die. It's like magic. So you write this book once, and then it can pay you and your heirs and successors for a very long time if you sort this out. So yes, in the morning I write and create. Sometimes that might be creating a course or some other thing that might turn into a book, because I do some courses but I turn them into books. And then in the afternoon I do marketing. I do my podcast, which actually is also revenue. I do email. Email is a big part of any writer's life, regardless of how you publish. I do business and marketing stuff in the afternoon. And then obviously sometimes I'm off doing book research or conferences or other stuff like that. But essentially, this has been my full-time job for over a decade.
Yeah, you're getting good at it.
Well, but the thing is, you only learn to be good at things when you practice them. I also love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And I hated my old day job. So this is the best job ever. And I love it.
You've always got that in the back of your mind.
Do you have a favourite bit? Is the writing the bit? Is there something that just really fulfills you particularly in all that stuff?
Seriously, there is very little I don't love, and the reason also is because I only choose to do the things I love.
Yeah.
So, for example, TikTok, as we record this in June 2022, TikTok is the latest thing that people are talking about. And when it kind of emerged, I was like, no way, not interested. So I choose to focus on the things that I enjoy. So, for example, podcasting. I've been podcasting pretty much continuously since 2009. I also have I have the Creative Pen podcast. I also have the Books and Travel podcast. And I love podcasting. So I focus on audio first marketing, I guess. I do lots of other things, but I just choose not to do the things that I hate. So things like formatting, I have a print formatter. I do my own ebook formatting because I really enjoy that, but I hate formatting for print. So I just outsource that. I hate Amazon ads. So I outsource that. So it's just a case of finding what you love and doing, like I love the writing and I love that I choose to do marketing. I love the business side. But again, all these things I have learned, and I have a degree in theology. So this is not exactly
well, I don't know. It's fed into your books.
It has fed into my fiction, and I'm fascinated by religion and all of that. But my point is that you can learn all of these things. So I was not I was not doing all this stuff before. I've just learned it along the way. And I guess it's really hard to see where you might want to go. And again, I'll look back and go, how on earth did this happen? Like, how did I get here? And how you get here is just, the 500 words a day, the one marketing thing a day, I really need to learn this now question, and then you go do that, and you slowly build like brick by brick. What's I think amazing about this career is it's compounding. So it looks like nothing for years, and then things start to happen, and then they compound over time.
Because you've got a backlist.
Backlist brings in the income. Your marketing is paid off, and people discover you. Like you're talking to me now, and you didn't know who I was. I don't know. Last year, 15 years ago.
Yeah, very true.
I also suspect that you just don't waste as much time as we do. I get the feeling that you don't allow yourself to get distracted.
I would say that's true.
You're going through your day, there wasn't a gap you had for staring aimlessly into space and eating biscuits. So I don't know if don't know if that happens or whether it's not planned in.
Yeah, this morning, for example, it's a lovely sunny morning. I got up and went for like a 2-hour walk. So you could say that's wasting time in inverted commas. You could say that's mental health. Or you could just say it was a really nice morning and I went for a walk. And so, and then I was on holiday in Greece the other week. And I mean, we all have time and days and periods where it's more fallow. You can't be productive 100% of the time. That just doesn't happen. But I don't know, I have so many books in my head. I literally, and this is another thing, once you feel like you don't have enough ideas at the beginning, and then it just speeds up and speeds up. So I just feel like I need to get the books out of my head. That's part of it. And the other thing to encourage you guys and anyone listening is the first book is always takes the longest. So you literally just have to finish the first book, and once you finish the first book it becomes much easier. Well, not easier, it's always a challenge, but I think you at least understand that you can finish a book. So just get that first book finished. You don't have to publish it. Just finish the damn book.
Good advice.
I think that's brilliant advice.
Let's talk about your podcast, The Creative Pen. I highly recommend, by the way, to our listeners. What was your original reason for starting it?
Right. Well, of course, back in March 2009, when I started podcasting, it wasn't really even called podcasting. Right. It was called like downloadable audio. And it was back in the time when you would put a tape in you were in your car and you put the tape in the tape deck, and it would have an adapter to your your MP3 player, which was called something random. This was like, I think this was even before it must have been before the iPod. Like, it was a long time we go. And this will make you laugh too. My first episode, I phoned someone up on a phone, and I haven't had a phone for years, like a phone plugged into the wall phone, and put it on speakerphone and held a recorder next to it. Like That's how I did my first episode. But in terms of why, basically what happened is early 2008, I published my first book. It was print only because pre-ebook. I mean, you could do downloadable PDFs back then, but anyway, so I did the book, and that was sort of January 2000. No, it must have been 2007, December 2007-ish. Then I did all the traditional media. So I got on, primetime TV I was in Australia. Got on in the national papers. I did all the things you're meant to do, right? And I sold about 20 books.
Right.
And I was like, screw this. This is ridiculous. So I started looking at digital marketing. So the beginning of 2008, I was like, right, screw this traditional media and in-person based sales. I need to go online. And also I noticed America. So I was like, Americans, yes, brilliant. I need to market to Americans. Yeah. So I was like, right, how do I reach them? Digital is the way to go. So that was one thing. It was like, right, I have to learn how to market online. Started doing courses and all of that. And then I also, I really wanted to meet other authors, a bit like you guys are doing. So I thought, if I have a podcast, then maybe I can make some friends, because I was super lonely. I mean, it was really lonely, not knowing anyone. And so basically I started for those two reasons, marketing and networking. And over the years, I mean, it's sort of pillar of my business now. It's also its own revenue stream. I have, in around 2015, the traffic had got so big that I either had to start making it pay, or I had to give it up, and so I made it pay. So that was good. Yeah. And I'm on episode like 660 something. Wow,
blimey! And what have you enjoyed most about it? Has it been the meeting of the people, or has it been just like what you've learned from it?
Well, both. I mean, some of my best friends now I met on Twitter. And then my sort of friend dating approach is, interesting person on Twitter. I'll invite them on my podcast. And then I talk to them on the podcast. And then at the time, depending on where I was in the world, I would meet people for coffee. And some of those people are now like, my closest friends. So who I met on Twitter, talked to on the podcast, and then met in person. So that has definitely been effective. And then also it is definitely what I learned. So that's another tip for people. You have to have an author, you have to think about your long-term author brand and whatever you do. So I'm going to have to call it, guys. You will have to ditch this podcast at some point, because I assume you do not want to be the failing writers forever. So you're going to have to rebrand it as like the successful writers or something like that, because your brand has to last. So the Creative Pen was my third author brand, by the way.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I was like,
what was it before?
How to Enjoy Your Job, which was my first non-fiction book. So I branded it around the book.
Of course.
Mistake. Yeah. Everyone, do not brand around the book, because you will write more books. And then the second one, it was around what I was learning. It was like Success Student. And again, that didn't last. And then the Creative Pen was like, okay, I can grow into this. And so now, my show now, I talk to people I want to talk to, basically. So I have a lot of shows on AI and Web3 and Metaverse and NFTs, as well as the craft of writing fiction. I know you've had like Will Storr on. I've had Austin Kleon and like lots of people, Stephen Pressfield, lots of people talking about craft and business and marketing, but also futurist stuff. So I don't think you can, again, I don't do things I don't enjoy. So I wanted, it's enjoyable, I still network, but plus it also makes really good money.
Yeah, well, that's good. Very pleased to hear it.
It's perfect.
There's some more Failing Writers podcasts coming up next after this short interlude. Basically, when I stop talking, then it'll start again. So I just need to shut my cake hole and then we can get back to it. Okay, stop talking now. Zip. That's me zipping my mouth up. Here we go.
You're like coming back to the sort of futurologist stuff. You're definitely an early adopter. You began your podcast obviously way back when, and I know that you're a keen advocate of writing software and AI writing aids and stuff like that, and NFTs and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any sort of outlandish predictions on what the next big thing might be? Are there any sort of big shifts on the horizon for writers?
I don't think I am an early adopter, actually. What I am is a magpie of information. I consume I listen to podcasts all the time. I read a lot of books. I read like 3 to 5 books a week. I go to conferences. I attend things, and I'm always I love learning. You can probably tell. I love learning, and so I curate things, and then I don't try them all. Obviously, if I tried them all, it would be ridiculous. But I look for signals. I think this is the tip. I look for signals. So let's take something like blockchain technology. It's been around for 12, 14 years now. And we first talked about it at London Book Fair in 2018. And really only now a blockchain technology is starting to move into the mainstream. And like you mentioned, podcasting. So I'm usually 5 to 7 years early. And I only created my first NFTs in March 2022. So that's probably how long it's going to take before things happen. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I just look at things with an eye to what I want, and what I want is always more freedom, more independence, more time to do the things I want to do. And as I said, I like writing, I like reading, I like traveling. And so I think what's coming is just more and more ways to turn one person's creativity into even more possibilities. That's how I see it. I see, I mean, we talked about intellectual property assets, and we make money as writers. We create intellectual property assets and then we license them. That's essentially how copyright works. And so I expect to be licensing my rights in many, many more ways because of the potential of the technology to come. I love the idea of many more income streams. I think we all do. So yeah, if people are interested though, I do have a section on my website called thecreativepenn.com/future, and that's got links to all my kind of futurist episodes.
It's all those things to keep an eye on, because any industry can change so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many sort of disruptive means to flip an industry on its head these days. I feel like you've got to watch. You've got to be careful.
This is where licensing and contracts make such a difference. And I wanted to mention, let's just talk about contracts, because, you know, publishing choices are about business, and business for this type of stuff is about contracts. So one of the things I would say to people with thinking about your publishing options and what's in the contract is there is a little clause that might be in contracts. We see it all the time, which is that you're licensing all formats existing now and to be created for the life of copyright. And this clause is very, very dangerous in a world where, for example, NFT books are just starting to be published. If you've signed away that clause, or even all digital rights, you won't be able to do your own NFTs. So to me, one of the most important things is control of your intellectual property assets. And so just beware of the contracts you sign. So these are the things we have to look out for. And just as a salient example, J.K. Rowling is possibly the most famous independent publisher out there, because she, when her publisher sent around the addendum to her publishing contract 15 years ago, whenever it was, 20 years ago, she said, oh no, I'm not going to sign away my digital rights, I'm going to keep them. And that's when she started Pottermore, which basically owns all the digital rights to Harry Potter and turned it into whatever it is now, multi-billion-dollar business. Yeah. So yeah, just remember that publishers are not charities, they are businesses, and value your work. I think that's the message.
How do you see the publishing industry, the traditional publishing industry, changing or surviving in the future there? They seem slightly unwilling to change and move forward with the times in many ways.
Well, I mean, traditional publishing does what it does.
I suppose the clue's in the name is it's called traditional. It's going to be traditional.
Well, I mean, what I would say is everything is a spectrum, right? There's no...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not your typical indie author. There is no... Every author's experience is different. Every author's goals are different. And publishers are the same. Like, obviously, there's some behemoths that are owned by James Murdoch. There are tiny, nimble, digital first publishers who are great at advertising. So the publishers are not all the same. And I mean, I've licensed my work to, a number of different publishers, foreign rights. But no, I mean, traditional publishers, I think they're in they become stronger because of the acquisitions. So what you'll see is they just buy up backlists. Remember that, again, their company is about the acquisition and licensing of intellectual property rights. That's why they will go and buy up, a smaller publisher. It's not because they love the authors. It's because the books make them money. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, my books make me money. So what you've got to think is, where do I fit into this company's business model? That's essentially
This is just on the back of that, this is a terrible admission probably, but I think I might have only ever bought maybe two or three indie published books. One of them being Stone of Fire, but that's not.
See, I don't know how you would even know anymore.
Well, I was about to say exactly that. I'm just assuming that, but actually things have changed so much. Maybe I've bought loads. I don't know. That's a really good question.
If you bought Harry Potter, I mean, that's the thing. You bought an ebook or an audiobook of Harry Potter. Because the point is, Pottermore is obviously it's the top of the continuum. Put J.K. Rowling way out there, obviously, with her Pottermore business. But that's what you're doing. You're buying an ebook from a UK limited company. Yeah. And if you buy a book from me, it's from a UK limited company. And, most successful indie authors have their own publishing imprints now. You will not even know. Like someone like L.J. Ross, for example, who has, I think it's Dark Skies Press, her small presses. I mean, she's multi-award winning, multi-best-selling, top Kindle best-selling. She has her own warehouses, A.G. Riddle would be another one. Hugh Howey, even Andy Weir, The Martian. I mean, there's tons and tons of books. I mean, those are just some fiction examples, but with non-fiction now, you would probably find that most... if anyone is a blogger or a podcaster, they're probably self-publishing, because if you have an audience, you can make 90% royalty if you self-publish versus 10% if you go with a publisher.
That's the margin, is it?
Between 10 and 25%, and it will totally depend on the different... remember, there's not just 1%. I can hear people listening going, no, you're wrong. Well, your contract will be itemised depending on the different formats. So, some might do more, some might do less, but often it's after expenses have been taken out. I mean, the point is there's no exact numbers for anyone. You can't say this is this and this is this. It's always going to be different. But the difference between me selling a book direct from my website when I make about 94% royalty and most traditionally published authors, let's say they make 20%
on a good day.
That's the difference. Also, it's in my bank account today, and that's what I like, as opposed to
and that does make a difference.
Huge difference. I mean, like when the pandemic hit, for example, you remember those early days, like April 2020. We were all very worried. We all thought the end of the world was nigh, right? We thought everything was going to come crashing down. And of course it did for a lot of people. But for me, what I did was immediately send out an email with a 50% off coupon to my entire catalogue. And I made good money from that email, which all ended up in my bank account. And that became like a just in case fund, because if it all fell apart. And so that, to me, remember my story about getting laid off in the global financial crisis? It was that when the stock market crashed, and of course all these things came back, and I'm an optimist. I believe they always do. But you have to decide how much control you want to have over your creative career, over your financial career. Do
you think there's still snobbery around about the self-publishing versus traditional publishing?
Only by people who are protecting their own business model.
Right.
And that's fine. Look, if you go to the independent publishing arena now, indie authors, we're almost this entirely separate industry. We have, you wouldn't have any of my book sales in any of the stats you see in the news. None of my book sales will be measured by anyone. They're entire, and that's true for most indie authors, because Amazon doesn't get measured, and neither does selling direct. So me selling direct from my website does not get counted. The stats you see coming out of the Society of Authors generally don't cover the type of things that we do as indies. We have our own events, we have our own conferences, we have our own podcast ecosystem. But what's happening is so many writers now are traditionally published as well, or they have come out of traditional publishing, got their rights back, and now they want to go indie, or they want to do it under another name, so it's just not them and us anymore. So the snobbery I felt around sort of 2012 to 2015.
Yeah.
It's not. Nowadays, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If people feel that way, it's probably because they haven't got to a point in their career where they need to earn some money.
Yeah.
So you don't think traditional press see independent publishing as like a legitimate threat to its market share?
No, I don't. I mean, that's not true. There are some genres where traditional publishers have almost completely left. Sort of romance erotica is the biggest obvious one. And obviously there's women's books that come under, chick lit, stuff like that. They're sort of cross the border. But urban fantasy might be another one. Things like lit RPG. There's whole categories that traditional publishing doesn't even do. And that's where a lot of indie authors are making a stack of cash. But it's a tough question. I mean, I don't think traditional publishing thinks about self-publishers at all. Like, why would they? Like, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters to them, because what's so funny is what happens when you hit a certain level of success as an indie is you get emails saying, hey, can we buy your backlist, or can we do you want to publish a book with us, or whatever. So many indies are now hybrid. Say do print only deals. Hugh Howey, again, mention him because his Wool series is coming out on Apple TV. He did a print only deal, kept his ebook rights globally. So there's all these different things you could do, and we all work with traditional publishers. And I would absolutely sign a deal with a traditional publisher if the contract was right. And it has been for different foreign rights. So I've signed German, French, Italian, South Korean, some other ones, another one I can't remember. But yeah, and I've done an audiobook deal. We work together. I think it's false to say it's either or, basically.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that we invited you onto the show, Joanna, is because all three of us have got books that we'd like to publish probably over the next year. And I'm thinking of putting out like a little book of short love stories, for example, in time for Valentine's Day next year. But have you got what are your kind of top do's and don'ts for someone who's never done it before and is basically starting from the very beginning?
You mean you want to self-publish?
I think so, yeah. That's the route I'm thinking of going down there.
Sorry to have to pitch this, but I do have a free ebook called Successful Self-Publishing, which
sounds relevant.
Yeah, it's very relevant, and it's not a short answer, and I get asked this like every day, 3 times a day. Yeah. So yes, Successful Self-Publishing, how to publish in ebook, print, and audiobook is free on all the various apps and stores, and it's also in print and audio, read by me. So that will answer all the questions. But what I would say is you have to. And that has a lot of all the technical things and the various sites and stuff. What I would say is if you can wrangle an MS Word document, you can self-publish. It's not hard. You just need to know the right websites to go to and stuff.
I'm guessing, probably a better question might be, what are the most common mistakes? That's probably, it's like the fear of just getting it horribly wrong.
Yeah, well, I think a common mistake is thinking that you're going to upload a book and then anyone's going to notice.
Well, yeah. We're perfectly aware of that problem.
Yeah, so I think marketing is a challenge for any writer, and that's true of traditionally published authors as well as independent authors. So there's something like 2,500 books published per day on the Kindle store. Oh my God. And that is only going to grow and grow and grow and grow as more and more people, and it's just... there is a lot of content. I mean, podcasts is the same, right?
Yeah.
But to me, circling right back, the long-term thinking is the biggest issue with people who publish a new book, again, regardless of self-publishing or traditional. You have to think long-term in this career. You absolutely have to, because that first book, look, to be frank, you're not even going to be a good writer yet. Which is why I just rewrote my first 3 novels after more than a decade. So depending on when you bought Stone of Fire, you either got the early version or the brand new, spanking, re-edited version. But this is the thing, it is a long-term career. You will not, it's very unlikely that you will make tons of money or even any money in the first year, let's say, especially if you only put out 1 book. So most of us who make really good money, we have multiple books, usually in a series, whether fiction or non-fiction. And look, if you get a traditional publishing contract, it will be the same. They'll be like, okay, what other books are you thinking of? Or it might be a 2-book deal, it might be a 3-book deal. I mean, 1-book deals, I'm not even sure if people are doing them anymore.
Right.
So because everyone knows it takes more than 1 book. Also, I mean, you guys are doing a good thing by having this podcast, but what you've got to remember is, depending on the genre of your book, it doesn't necessarily cross over. So I would say about 5% of my audience at the Creative Pen buy my fiction, because they don't necessarily read thrillers, dark fantasy, horror, whatever. So yeah, there are people listening to this show who won't necessarily buy your romantic short stories.
What? No, come on. Of course they will.
Okay, or this is the other problem. They'll buy it because they love you, and that will screw up your algorithms, because you'll get a whole load of people who say I bought your book because, you know, I really love what you do as a podcaster, and so I go and buy it, and then you start getting all these random things in the algorithm feed, like people who just bought the latest Stephen King horror like your book. So the thing is, there's tons of things to think about in terms of marketing, and I feel like people who jump into any kind of publishing don't consider the rest of what they want as a career. So probably my top advice would be just keep writing, but with another half of your brain or another time slot in your week, sit down and actually do some strategic thinking. Like, why am I doing this? Is it purely creative? Is it that I want to make money? Do I want to win an award? Why am I doing this anyway? What would help me get to that goal? How can I tune out all the advice? And this is another problem with this show. I know how this goes, because you're like, oh, that was great, I'm going to do that. And then you realize that really doesn't suit you or the life you want to live. So, for example, if you want to get interviewed in The Guardian or reviewed in The Guardian, then you need to be traditionally published.
Yeah.
Or if you want to win the Booker Prize, you should try and go traditional publishing. I mean, there are choices if you have specific goals. Doesn't mean you're going to make those goals, obviously, but there are choices to make in your journey, and you have to make those choices per book. My big tip is take a step back and think a bit more strategically around these things.
Yeah, because I don't actually know why I write, really, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, just crack on then.
Crack on.
Just crack. It doesn't matter then, does
No,
it?
I don't think it does, but I think I've always had that view, really, that I think I just love doing it.
So what have you been writing for years?
Yeah, been writing novels and short stories and...
Wait, sorry, you just said you've been writing novels. How many novels do you have?
Oh, God. Like one that's like properly what I would consider kind of finished. Although, looking back at it now, I hate it.
Yeah, that's normal. But how many in progress do you have?
I've got 2 in progress, halfway through a crime, sort of murder mystery.
Are they related? Are these related
No,
books?
You see, that's the thing. I can't imagine myself ever writing a series. And not that I'm against it or anything, but just I just feel like I've got all these ideas and I want to move on to the next thing.
Oh, okay. So when I say series, it doesn't have to be... I mean, generally, a series is book 1, book 2, book 3. But also, I mean, a lot of literary fiction writers, for example, a lot of horror writers, for very different reasons, have standalone books. I have standalone books. I've got 3 standalone books coming. And essentially, what you have to find is the underlying theme that goes through your work. So I'm also like you, I'm a multi-passionate creator. You do not have to put yourself in a box at all. What you have to then say is, I'm a multi-passionate creator, so I can't expect to earn as much money as the person who just wrote 5 crime novels in a row. And that's fine too. You just have to have that expectation. What you can also do, which is what I've done, is split your names. So I am Joanna Penn for non-fiction, JF Penn for my fiction. And again, you can do that if you want to split them, if they're very different.
Split them by genre,
But
or whatever.
I think, though, the point, just coming back to it, we all have this default mode of going about our creativity in the world. And if you're a writer, you're a writer. You can't help it. If you don't know, the reason you write is because you write. That is why you write.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily even enjoy it all the time, but you do it.
Yeah, of course you don't. We don't optimise for happiness. We optimise for meaning and what's worth doing. I mean, no one said this was easy.
I'm going to get that on a T-shirt, Joanna. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to spend your life how you want to, but it's got to be. Nobody really just wants to lie on the beach all day. We want to create work that matters.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Coming back to that miserable day job, I love holding my book in my hand and saying, "I made this. This is my book," and then I want to do it again. That's the feeling. It's that feeling of accomplishment. That's another reason you guys have to publish something, even if you just self-publish a pamphlet of poetry or a short story. Hold it in your hand. Say, "I made this."
No, I've said that before, actually, Joanna. That was, I think, something that we just needed to get towards, to get past almost, and just kind of.
I've got the thing for you guys, which will actually sell. You just do a short non-fiction 20,000 words writing tips from the Failing Writers podcast. Stick it up on Kindle Unlimited and put it up for like £2.99, and you will actually sell some copies. And it will test the process. You will find it really easy to do. You've got the content. You could even email the people you've had on the show and say, "Hey, we're quoting you in this book. Would you mind emailing your list?" And you will be like, MG, I don't know if we're allowed to say
whatever you like
on the show. You'll be like, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing." So
I like that.
I like that.
Worth a try.
I like that.
Yeah, especially the 20,000 words.
Yeah, should we give that Dave to do? I mean, because he's not here to argue. He could do that. Come in and just put our names to it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, Joanna, just to kind of wrap it up, what's on the cards next? What's your next venture? What are you working on?
Oh, goodness. Like I said, I always have more and more books. I'm just finishing the edits on how to write a novel, which is my first craft book. I've mostly focused on business, but this is something I've been asked for a long time. So that should be out mid-July. And then I'm back to the fiction. I've got these 3... Well, I've got a short story I have to get done, and then I've got 3 standalone novels that I'm trying to decide which one to write next. So that's happening. And then I'm walking the Camino de Santiago, the Portuguese route, in September, which is going to be sort of that's a sort of travel memoir type book. So I've got travel coming up and lots of books in different genres, and just
quite busy then.
Happy times. It's what I enjoy. And again, just kind of circling back, I hated my day job back in the day, and so every day I'm able to do this. I'm just a happy little creative soul.
Joanna, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Really interesting.
No
great.
worries. And if people want to know more, come on over to The Creative Penn podcast, PENN, Penn with a double N. And also my best social media is Twitter, @The Creative Penn with a double N, if anyone has any questions.
Thanks a lot, Joanna.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome. Oh, hey, any sign of Dave yet?
Hold on a minute. Dave? No.
Have you checked the dressing rooms?
Yeah, no, he's not in there. He's not in the green room, not in the dressing rooms. He's not in the. You remember the podcast tower we got built? With the kind of the lounge chairs at the top
for the big celebrities.
He's not in there.
That is weird.
No idea.
I had a sort of feeling he might have nicked Joanna Penn's rider.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to just pop in halfway through. I was expecting to pop up halfway through, but
half drunk. Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
But no.
Yeah, it was an interesting interview, though, wasn't it?
It was fascinating. I mean,
it's the most business-focused interview we've ever had with a writer.
Yeah, it was proper business, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which is because I think that's not something that we naturally lean to, or it's not like we ever started. So let's start a podcast about writing because we want to be successful business people in the writing world.
Yeah.
That's not our kind of.
Maybe that's where we're going wrong.
That's probably one of the ways. I mean, if we're going to list the ways we're going wrong, John, that would go on the list.
Yeah. We don't need to start there. But if we could acquire just like the smallest little morsel of Joanna's.
Well, I think that's the thing, because Joanna obviously goes off to the nth degree on it. It's kind of like entrepreneur, business mind thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not me. That's not my thing. It makes me, it does make me a little bit, because it just, I don't know, it seems like a lot of hard work and a lot of kind of. No, but it does. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's not what I'm in. I'm not in it for that. I'm just,
Less about the money and good on us. This is not a judgment, by the way, if you're listening, John.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, because it takes also. I mean, she said that herself.
Totally.
You've got to, if you want to be successful, you need to identify yourself what success looks like to you.
Totally.
Because it might not be making millions from it or doing whatever or having, like, she's got 35 books out there, and that might not be it. It might just be getting published.
Yeah.
Publishing yourself.
Just finishing a book, to be fair, would be
Yeah.
nice. It's funny, we should confess to our listeners that when we finished our chat and stopped recording, Joanna gave us a little bit of a piece of her mind, didn't she? In a very nice and probably quite a deserved way. Yeah, she told us in no uncertain terms to stop messing about, stop making excuses and get on with it.
I didn't. I wasn't paying it. I didn't hear that.
Did you not hear that?
It's water off a duck's back now, mate. Stuff like that just doesn't
shut
go
down
in.
after that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, I was still, when she was saying that, I was still going, yeah, but it's not as easy as that, Joanna. It's not quite as simple as that.
But wait, I haven't got through all my excuses. Still got some more for you. But again, it's that thing. It's great to get these different perspectives on, because.
Yeah.
And again, she made a very good point in that I think is brilliant. That like she said from her podcast, it's easy to interview these people, and we've done it all the time, because you get so you buy in so much to the people, a lot of the people you interview, and you go, oh yeah, brilliant, we'll do that, that's the way to do it, and whatever their little technique or thing, and it's all very individual, isn't it? But you end up kind of, oh yeah, that's a good idea, we'll do that, and it's not really. It's just about taking little slices of going, actually, I
think that's right.
I'm not going to become some kind of Amazon business magnate entrepreneur writer. That's not me. But there's going to be elements of that you can take, or some of the self-publishing advice or websites you can use. You think, definitely. That is useful. That gets rid of an obstacle in my way. So it's about taking little bits, isn't it, for everyone?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why we actually do need to write the book that she suggested. Yeah, so I think lots of stuff in there, more stuff to think about. And
yeah, definitely.
And on the same day we recorded that interview, we recorded next week's interview as well, didn't we? And
we did.
To say pulls apart. I mean, different ends of the scale, really, for Julia that we interviewed, who's about the psychology of pushing your writing through. And I don't know, just a very positive but gentle philosophy on it, really. That's
It's kind of the science of creativity, really, isn't it? Is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but in a very personal way.
And a very non-judgmental and...
very she lives in LA kind of way, actually, wasn't it? So that's to come next week. That's.
Oh, by the way, I thought of something before. Do you remember when we finished recording and we were talking off-air with Joanna about AI voices and how our voices could actually get stolen?
Yeah.
And unscrupulous people using our voices without our consent. I thought from now on the podcast, I think we need to, like, sporadically talk in a really silly voice to confuse the algorithm so that our voices can't be stolen.
Definitely.
So, can we do that for
voice
now
theft? Imagine that as a it's like there's probably a sci-fi movie, like a sequel to Demolition Man in that, isn't there? Something like, where people's voices have been stolen.
Everybody's talking like Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Or everyone's talking like you were doing the funny voices during the thing, so you can't be stolen.
I stole it from John Rand.
Yeah.
So from now on, ladies and gentlemen, all episodes of the podcast will be done like this.
Yeah,
that's the future.
Yes, doesn't necessarily make for listenable to. What I'll probably do, to be honest, is if you do voice everything like that for the podcast, I will probably just recreate your voice with an algorithm, artificial intelligence thing, and redo it so it sounds like you.
Yeah, just type it in. Actually, thinking about the whole AI voices thing, I was thinking it would be really interesting, and I don't know whether our listeners will be up for this or not, but I've got a little request, because I'm genuinely interested in what people think of AI narrators. and whether they would listen to them, whether they'd be happy listening to them. Because I don't know if I'm biased or not, because, we've worked in the industry for a very long time, and I don't know if we're just more sensitive to, what we think a good narrator sounds like. Yeah. But I would be fascinated to know what you listeners think of AI fiction narrators. I'm not sure non-fiction is, I think that's slightly different, because I think in a way the idea is to sort of strip out any personality. But could you do us a favor, go to deepzen.io, have a little listen to that clip of Joanna's book, 1,000 Fiendish Angels, and either tweet us at Failing Writers or email us. What is it, Tommy? failingwriterspodcast@gmail.com.
That's the one.
And and let us know what you honestly think. I'd be really grateful. I think Joanna would be genuinely interested in people's opinions too. So let us know what you think of that. Give us your full on opinion there. That's what we want to hear. So there you go. I just thought I'd throw that in. Yeah. So we know what's coming up next.
But immediately next. Yeah, we've got the last part of your tree story.
Oh yeah,
quite exciting.
It is
the culmination.
It is. It all comes down to this. So I hope you enjoy that. It's a very short episode. This one.
Do nothing but improve it.
Oh, hang on, Tommy. Look behind you. Look who's just walked into the studio.
Shut up.
Right then, lads. What have I missed?
Everything. I think it's probably fair to say.
The entire podcast, mate.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just time to say goodbye, really.
Right then.
See you next week, listeners.
Yep. See you later, gang.
Goodbye. See you next week. Maybe.
Well, what was funny though is I read 9 books while I was away. I lay on the beach for maybe 8 hours a day reading books, and I was very happy.
I like the idea though that maybe you had like tan lines, but instead of like what you were wearing, it was just the shape of the book.
Hello.
Where's everybody gone?
The Ancient, Part 5.
The ground shakers returned. Keen as lightning strikes, they picked us off, ending each ancient force as quick and careless as crawlers chew through stems of light pool. There was hardly time to notice before the first of us were gone. The dread crack of branch and the howling teeth through our thick shanks filled the world breath with our own quiet horror, cutting away deeper into the ancient. Then, soon, in the midst of one shadow time, we felt her, tripping through our footways with quick, light steps, quicker than we'd ever felt. Behind her, the solid, hard footbeats of another. At first, we didn't know him from the haste of his tread, but then we knew it was the heavy-foot returned. He followed her, winding deeper, further into the tangle of our innermost, to the great seed-giver. There, she scaled the ancient branches like a furred thing, while he prowled beneath. The shadow time passed in stillness, their world breath leaving them hot and fast, close, listening. Then movement, an old limb bending, let go, a crack, a screech like the silent wing, a cry that carried across the valley to the new growth, a cry like the fallen, then a thud, and all was quiet. We tasted it again, the metal sap soaking the ground food, but more this time, much, much more, running down the clods, thick and warm, feeding our life force.
5th of September, 1988. Dear Dolly, so it turns out Friday is the big day. Thank you so much to you and Bob for agreeing to pick me up. I'm so grateful it won't be a cab taking me back to my lodgings. I think that might just finish me off, and it'll be good to talk to someone who understands. I don't know how much you know about that night. I suspect you've been told everything there is to tell, but in case you haven't, there are some things I want you to know about your sister that I think might make you very proud of her. She went back to the house that night to help me. She was looking for evidence that might prove my innocence. Unfortunately, she must have made a noise because Stanley interrupted her. As you're aware, she managed to make a run for it, but instead of waking a neighbour, she ran for the cover of the forest to escape him. I can imagine her now, her fleet-footed gallop, springing over tree roots as though she was 17, not in her mid-60s. Her knowledge of every low branch and every divot in the dark. She reached the old beach, where we sometimes met as teenagers in secret, then climbed. Footholds and branches ingrained in her memory. She must have thought she'd be safe up there, in the blackness of the forest. But he was determined. He kept up, saw where she'd gone, and started to climb. Then, well, you're perfectly aware what happened next. But the thing your sister probably hasn't told you is that as he climbed, Betty, instead of thinking of herself, was retrieving from her pocket the photo she'd found in Stanley's safe. The photo of Stanley with his arm around Mary Greenaway, and was carefully hiding it in a cavity in the tree. Earlier that day, she'd sent me a note telling me where she planned to hide any evidence she might find in case her plan went wrong. It looked like it had. That's when the branch holding Stanley broke, and he fell several meters to his death. I want you to know, Dolly, that I love your sister profoundly. The courage it took to do that in the face of the danger she knew was waiting for her, it truly astonishes me. There are people in this world that choose the easy way, looking always for opportunities to take what they can get. But Betty is the opposite. She's never done a single thing because it was easy or because she will gain from it. She will only ever do what is right. And you, Dolly, I'm so grateful for everything you and Bob have done for me and Betty over the past few years. We couldn't have survived it without you. As I'm out of this godforsaken place a few days early, I thought it might be nice to surprise Betty by meeting her in the woods. The woods she's rescued from destruction. And so I was wondering if you'd mind making sure she goes for a walk along the Colby Edge path on Friday at 2 p.m. so I can surprise her. Thank you. And see you Friday at 9 a.m. Yours truly, Alfred.
She'd become part of us again, here so often, fending off the ground shakers with the others, patrolling our borders, our new guardians, growing in number. It was turning last grow, and at the peak of the great light, she crossed into our realm as she always did. But only we knew what awaited her there. She could not sense, as we could, the easy treading footbeats that led down to the trickle run. Had no way of knowing who waited beneath the water conus. And then, in a gust, she was there, and we felt those old songs and a sudden bloom of world breath opening out around them as their trunks inosculated in the dappled sky heat, becoming one.
January 1990. Dear Alfred, it suddenly occurred to me that this might be the last time I ever write to you. When I put it down in words like that, it sounds so final, doesn't it? And considering how the course of our relationship has been chronicled in letters, that thought saddens me slightly. Which of course is ridiculous. Hopefully I won't need to write to you when we move in together on Tuesday. I somehow suspect the benefits of living with you will far surpass the lack of letters. Or maybe we can carry on writing anyway. Perhaps I'll leave you love notes in the pockets of your pyjamas. Maybe you can secrete missives in the potting shed for me to find on summer days. Or perhaps, occasionally, I'll walk past our old yew, peek inside the hollow and catch a glimpse of white paper. Feel that warmth spread across my neck again, and my heart clatter in my chest. Well done on getting the flat all packed up. The house is packed up too now, finally. I won't miss this place. It's a lovely old house, but when I think of what helped pay for it, all those bungs from the Harlingtons over the years, I can't wait for the money to go back where it belongs. High time people began to put the future before the present for a change. Oh, I meant to say, I've kept all my jazz records to one side, so they'll go in the van last. I thought we could play them as we unpack everything. First one on, this old copy of Saxophone Colossus someone very kind once bought me. Yours forever, and with no less excitement than that 16-year-old girl back in 1938, Betty Dalton.
The two still come now, slowly, not as steady-footed, sometimes in silence, sometimes with others, moving quietly through a number. The old scar in the great seed giver is thick, swollen, spreading. The trickle run is drier in the warm time, sodden in the shutdown. The world breath thick, the great light hotter, and still more of them arrive each day.